Hello and welcome to a quick CADLink demonstration. My name is Dasha Shaina. I'm a solution engineer at QBuild software. Before we dive into the demo, let me introduce you to QBuild software. As an industry leader in engineering to ERP integrations, QBuild software serves over 2,000 discrete manufacturing customers worldwide, supported by our network of 7 global offices. We are proud to be partnered with over 50 CAD, PDM, and PLM providers, as well as Infor and Infor implementation partners. Our partnership with Infor has spanned more than a decade, during which we have established a strong and trusted relationship. We have also maintained a long-standing partnership with PTC, built on collaborations and shared commitment to deliver robust CAD, PDM, and PLM integration solutions. We're also PTC's only technology provider dedicated to connecting Windchill to the ERP systems. For today, we will concentrate on our solution called CADLink. CADLink allows you to synchronize your bill of material from engineering directly to SyteLine with just a click of a button. That means fewer manual data entry errors, faster time to production, and more time for engineers to constrain their time on engineering work. With that said, let's jump into the demo. What you're seeing right now is the bill of material that I'll be using for the demo today, directly in the Windchill environment. Now, as soon as this assembly is fully completed and is ready to go into the ERP system, that is when the design engineer is able to launch CADLink and search for that assembly through the CADLink interface directly in Windchill. Now, what CADLink is doing is it's doing a comparison of the information between the two systems. It is grabbing the information from Windchill and comparing to what is currently present on the ERP side. CADLink will be using the part number as unique identifier, and based on that, looking in all of the part and BOM information. What you're seeing right now is the CADLink interface, and this is the screen that shows you the result of that comparison. Let's look through the colors first. The first color I would like to address is the color green. Green represents components that are brand new to the ERP environment. What that means is that the part number from Windchill was not located in the ERP side, meaning that this part needs to be created from new. CADLink will grab information like part number, description, revision, and of course quantity directly from the Windchill environment and populating it for us here to be then created in the Infor CSI side. However, in addition to that, there is a couple of additional properties that might not be something you populate in your Windchill properties yet. Unit of measure, product code, and the rest would be examples to those properties. Some of those are required on the ERP side. Therefore, CADLink can actually populate them for you here without having to read them from the Windchill side. In my case, I have set up a very quick logic to say that if a property is not present on Windchill and it is required on the ERP side, populate a specific default value. However, if that default value doesn't apply, you're able to switch and choose a different value directly from the dropdown here. This dropdown and any other dropdown that you see in a CADLink interface will be populated with the values coming directly from the ERP side. Alternatively, you can also set up logic to specify how the information needs to be populated. Directly in the CADLink settings, you'll be able to set up any logic that you prefer to specify. And just like that, you can set up new part records directly in the ERP system based on information coming from the engineering side. In this assembly, I just have a few of those green line items, but you can imagine how long it would take to create each of those parts one by one in the ERP system manually, instead of grabbing that information directly from engineering with CADLink. Now, our next color that I'd like to address today is going to be a color white. White represents components that are existing between the two systems, meaning that the part number from engineering was located in the ERP system and a part record exists. Once the part number is found, CADLink will start doing the comparison of the rest of the information, like description, revision, and quantity. And if everything is the same, everything will be highlighted in white to show you that no changes are needed. Our goal with CADLink is to make sure that at the end of the process, all of the information is fully synchronized between the two systems. Therefore, our goal is to convert this whole bill of material into white line items. However, you will notice that some of our white line items have a yellow highlighting on them. This shows a discrepancy of the information between the two systems. By right-clicking on our yellow description, you're able to see what the difference is. You can see the value from Windchill versus the value from Infor CSI, and here the user is able to choose which value we would like to go with. Do we want to stay with the value from Windchill? Do we want to switch to the ERP one? Or do we want to write in our own? We can do either of those options. Now upon saving, CADLink will update this part record in CSI with this new description. Now, let's look into the yellow quantity, so it is a little bit different. Yellow quantity also shows us the difference of the information between the two systems, but in this case it will show us that in Windchill the component is present once, but in ERP system this component is not yet part of this bill of material. Therefore, upon saving, CADLink will add this existing component onto this BOM in a quantity of 1. So with this example, I'm showing you how we can add components to the BOM, but you might also need to remove components from the ERP bill of material. And this is where this green light item comes in play. When CADLink did a comparison, it found that this particular component is not currently part of our Windchill bill of material, but it is part of our ERP BOM. What that means is that you have made a change to your design. This component used to be on the Windchill BOM, but it's no longer there. Therefore, we should also remove it from the ERP bill of material as well. So upon saving, CADLink is going to do just that. It will update this bill of material by removing this part from it. Okay, so that is it for a quick recap of the first 4 colors. We have green for new, white for existing, yellow for discrepancy, and gray for items that will be removed from the ERP BOM. The last color that I'd like to show you today is going to be color blue, representing components that we call manual parts. So there are some components that you want to add into the ERP bill of material that might not be modeled or populated on Windchill BOM. Examples to those could be user manuals, packaging, paint, glue, wires, etc. So with CADLink, you can actually populate this information over directly in the CADLink interface. First, choose a parent of where you would like to populate the information to. Let's choose this one here. Right-clicking on a gray square will give me as an option to add a manual part, where I can now search the ERP system to find a bolt I would like to add, locate the one I would like to populate, double-click, and the information is over. Now the only thing I need to adjust here is how many of those bolts do I require. Let's say 10. And as simple as that, you have now we're able to populate a component on the ERP bill of material that is not present on a Windchill BOM. Of course, you can add as many of those manual parts on any level as you like. Now, another example of components that you might want to add to the bill of material that are not on Windchill are raw materials. So if you're manufacturing parts from raw material, you might want to add an additional level to the BOM to specify what is that what raw material the part is made out of. To do so, click onto the child component, right-click, and add raw material here. Similarly, search your ERP system to find the raw material, find the component you'd like to add, and populate it in. Lastly, populate the quantity information, just like that, and you're good to go. Now, as you notice, this component will be added as a child part to a modeled Windchill component. To speed up that process of adding raw material information through CADLink, what CADLink can also do is read information coming from Windchill directly on a part properties to know what raw material needs to be applied. All you have to do is to have a set property for raw material part number and raw material quantity. Okay, so that is it for our colors. Let's now move on to the side panel. We're able to see some of the additional information with regards to this bill of material. Firstly, we have a tab that allows you to set up operations and routing. Here we have 3 cubes for assembly, 1 cube for a part, and a gear for an operation. For those assemblies or BOMs that already exist in the ERP side, the information for operation will be coming as it is on the ERP side itself. But for our new assemblies, as that information doesn't yet exist, we're able to populate it directly through CADLink. We're going to take this 1.1 component as an example. By default, CADLink will always assign us the very first operation to step 10. And all of this information that you see here is coming directly from our settings. So right now, as it sets, all of this component needs to be entered into operation step 10. Once it is completed, the sub-assembly is completed as well. However, that's not always that easy. Sometimes you need to populate additional steps, and so that's what we're going to do next. By right-clicking on the component itself, you're able to add a routing. You'll see a step 20 is now populated, where you're able to choose a work center, and you're good to go. What it shows now is that all of the components need to go into version step 10. Upon completion, they will go into step 20. Once that is completed, the subassembly is completed as well. However, sometimes some components need to be entered in different operation steps. So that is also something you can do through CADLink by dragging and dropping components from one step to the next, populating it as such. Okay, so that is it for setting up operations and routing through CADLink. What I'm going to show you next is a couple of the side panel tabs that we have here. All of the following tabs are read-only tabs, and they're there for you to see additional information with regards to this BOM. First tab we have is BOM Changes tab. The Changes tab will populate all of the changes that will be made to the ERP system upon saving. Right now, no changes have yet been made, but here's a whole list of what is going to happen. You can see changes in quantity, changes in operation, and a quick note of when that changes as well. If needed, this Bill of Material Changes tab can also be exported to Excel for your personal documentation. Moving on, we have a CAD Property tab. This tab will show us all of the Windchill properties that are populated for a selected component. So you can see going from one component to the next, information changes. So at any point, if engineer needs to review this information, they don't have to go searching for it on a Windchill site. They'll be able to review it directly through here. Similarly, if we need to see the ERP information, we'll be able to look into Inventory, Where Used, and Custom Order tabs to find that information here. Once again, not having to search for it directly in the ERP site. Okay, and lastly, our tab that I would like to cover next is the Messages tab. This tab will populate all of the errors or warnings that are preventing us from saving information into ERP site. This would denote any errors that might be coming from the Windchill site or some of the errors that might be created by the user. In my particular case, I have an error that was created during the demo today. By double-clicking on an error itself, it will lead me to where the error is located. Looks like when we created and added raw material, we forgot to add operation step. And of course it is required, so CADLink noticed that, populated it for us on a Messages tab, and also disabled the Save button. To resolve this error, all you have to do is go back to Operations tab and add the Work Center here. As soon as you've done so, you'll notice that the Messages tab is now clear and the Save button is now enabled. Now, what we looked through the demo today, we first saw how CADLink grabs information from Windchill, how it does a comparison of information between the two systems. We also looked into how CADLink is able to add and adjust part information, like adjusting the description as needed or adjusting the ERP-specific properties. Then we looked into a BOM information and how CADLink is able to add additional components to the BOM, remove components from the BOM, or even add manual parts or raw materials as well. Next, we looked into how we're able to add operations and routing to our bill of material. And lastly, how we're able to validate the BOM to make sure that the BOM will be accepted and will be accurate inside of the ERP system. Our very last step as the design engineer is to press save and update all of this information into the ERP system. Before I do that, I will show you how the ERP system looks like right now. So what we have here is this bill of material assets. So that's exactly what you saw on a CADLink site as well. What we're going to do now is we're going to go back to CADLink and press save and start that creation and update of part and BOMs. Now the information has been successfully saved, so let's go back to our SyteLine site and see how that information looks like. And just like that, CADLink was able to create all of the not existing part item master information and also add the information to the BOMs right over here. And that is it for a quick look on how CADLink streamlines your workflow, reduces risk, and increases overall productivity. No jumping between systems, no copy-pasting the data from an import, just accurate data across your engineering and Infor SyteLine. If you're interested in implementing CADLink at your company, we invite you to reach out to us over our website. Schedule a complimentary in-depth CADLink demonstration from a link in the video description or directly from our website. Thank you for your time. Have a good day. Bye-bye.